What's up, team? Today we're talking about the 5 top questions that experienced runners are asking in 2024. Let's get into it. Now look, I really don't know if these are the top 5 questions that experienced runners are asking. If you are an experienced runner and you are asking yourself any of these questions, please let me know in the comments. And if you don't consider yourself an experienced runner but are still asking yourself questions, or if you're asking yourself any running related questions, put that in the comments too. As you can tell, the comments are really what these videos are all about. If you don't comment, it's more just like a one-sided conversation. But I did come across an article in Canadian Running Magazine. Again, Canadian Running Magazine for the win. And the article is titled, "The Top 5 Questions from Experienced Runners in 2024. Now look, the article starts off by saying that even if you are an experienced runner, there is no end to the questions. Like, you're always going to be wondering something. I hope that's true. I don't know if it is. I guess if you've been running long enough and you've had enough experience with training that maybe you wouldn't have any questions. Or maybe, like in my case, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit, but maybe you found something that just works for you. So the questions don't really arise because you don't care. You're doing what you like. And if you're happy, I'd say stick with it. So the first question that experienced runners are asking themselves in 2024 is how to overcome a fitness plateau. So look, you're putting in the work, you're putting in the effort, you kind of know what you're doing, or at least you think you do, but that clock isn't budging. And you know what I mean by clock, right? Maybe we're going out and we're racing, and yet our times aren't improving. So the first part of this, as the article points out, is to assess your training. And it asks the question, and look, this is going to sound very basic, but it asks the question, are you running your easy runs too fast? Are you recovering properly? And I don't just mean that time off in between your runs. Are you sleeping enough? How's your nutrition? Are you eating enough? The article also suggests that if you don't already have a training log, maybe get that going. And the reason that you want to get one going is to notice patterns in your training. So is there a certain type of run that you feel good on? And I think more importantly, if we're talking about plateaus, is there a certain type of run that you don't feel good while you're running it or after? Now look, I'd love to know your thoughts, but I track all my runs on Strava. I'm sure a lot of you do too. Strava just makes it very easy. Now, as far as using Strava as a training log, it's really just a training log to see what I did on any given day. I don't record how I felt about any of my runs, but I do use Strava. And I guess if you had a regular training log, if you used a pen and paper, it would work the same way. But I do use Strava as a training log when I want to go back to see what I did before certain races. And most of the time, that's going to be when I've had a good race and I'm looking to replicate results, or perhaps even do a little better. So I want to see how my training was leading up to a race, and more often than not, it's how my taper was leading up to a race. But honestly, I've got no interest in writing down how I feel about a certain run and to notice patterns in those feelings. My immediate reaction is to say I don't have time for that, but I definitely have time for that. I just can't be bothered. But if you do that, I'd like to hear about it. And I give you big props for it. Because while I think of myself as a fairly committed runner, I'm just not interested in writing down how I feel about each of my runs in hoping to identify some kind of pattern. If I'm honest, I don't really feel that good on most of my runs. I go out tired, I go out hungry, I go out when I have to go out in order to get my run done. So for most of my runs, I kind of look at them as if I'm squeezing the work in. It doesn't matter how I'm feeling as long as I am putting in the work. And maybe that's why I've plateaued for quite a number of years. Anyway, the article does suggest to bust through a plateau is by adding in speed work. And we're talking intervals, tempo work, hill work. When we add those things into our training plan, it's going to help us bust through that plateau. Now, I do speed work at least twice a week, and I think I'm still at a plateau. So obviously that isn't the be all and end all, but the article also suggests to add in 2 short strength workouts a week. And we know that by adding in the strength workout, it's to increase our power, to increase our efficiency. Also, strength training is the fountain of youth. It's not just for our running. Of course, it makes us a better runner, but it also helps us live life better. If you're not already strength training, that can help you break through a plateau. Also, if you've been training on your own for a lot of the time, maybe starting training with a group can help you break through that plateau. And I think they mean that the group will help push you a little further than you would go normally on your own. And then finally, the article suggests getting a coach. Coach is going to help create training plans, give you a little bit of guidance, and that guidance is going to be tailored specifically to you and the goals that you're going for. All good ideas, right? The next question that experienced runners are asking in 2024 is how they can avoid injury as they increase mileage and increase intensity. Remember, if we're trying to break through a plateau, we might be adding speed work, we might be adding strength work. That is certainly increasing our intensity, and so could result in injuries if we're not careful. Again, I think the advice that the article gives gives is quite basic. If you're training more, you might have to recover with a little more intention. And also nutrition. If you're working out more, you might need to take in more calories. And of course, there's always sleep. The article suggests getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And that sounds about right, doesn't it? Of course, if I had my way, if I didn't have to wake up without an alarm, I would definitely be getting on the 9-hour end of that sleep range. But, you know, there's life. We get what we get. The article gives a couple other recommendations to help prevent injuries. Those include getting assessed by a physiotherapist to find out where your weak spots are, talking to a dietitian to figure out what and when to eat after a workout, adding strength training. Now, yes, adding strength training can prevent injuries. It can also help you break through a plateau, and getting a coach to help you periodize your training. So a couple of these things, getting a coach, strength training, these are going to help you prevent injury, and they're going to help you break through that plateau. And then finally, the article suggests including a stretching and mobility session in the week, just to help you keep your joints and muscles moving well. Yeah, I'd like to do that. Honestly, I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not going to make that as a resolution just because I don't want to fail at a resolution. I can already tell ahead of time that I'm probably not going to do that. Maybe once or twice, but it's not going to be a practice I keep on for the year, so we'll kind of just push that aside. Okay, moving right along, the third thing that experienced runners are asking themselves in 2024 is, what are some advanced fueling tips for your long runs? I think this is pretty funny. Not what are some fueling tips for long runs, because, I don't know, there are loads of fueling tips for long runs, but specifically advanced. We don't want that beginner stuff. We want advanced fueling tips. And the article suggests, it's kind of a joke, but the article suggests carbo loading. Ever heard of that? I mean, that's some next level stuff right there. So yeah, the article suggests carbo loading in order to maximize your glycogen stores before a race. Who knew? And the article also suggests having a pre-race meal 2 to 3 hours before your event and making it full of carbohydrate-rich foods. And then during the race, the article suggests taking in 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour, and that can be in the form of energy gels, chews, sports drinks, or other easily digestible foods like dates or bananas. Now, I gotta say, and drop a thumbs up in the comments if you agree with this, but those don't seem like advanced fueling strategies to me. Honestly, I don't think advanced runners are really asking that, because what we just heard of carbo loading, having a carb-heavy meal a couple hours before your race and then fueling during your race, pretty basic stuff, right? Anyway, I guess it's only basic if you're actually doing it. If you're not doing it, maybe it's something that's going to help you move forward in 2024. I don't know. Moving on to the fourth thing that experienced runners are asking in 2024. Guys, I don't know, this is making me question Canadian Running Magazine. But apparently, Canadian Running Magazine thinks that experienced runners are asking, is there a difference between running on the treadmill and running outside? And they give the stock answer that running outside can be more interesting, but running on the treadmill is a great option if the weather isn't cooperating. And then they also point out that gem that it's important to train where you're going to race, and unless you're running a treadmill race, you should probably get outside and do a couple of miles outside. And finally, another one that I question who Canadian Running Magazine is actually interviewing to get these answers. Like, how experienced are these experienced runners? Because apparently the focus group that they used in order to get the answers for these questions asked the question, what other running gear would you recommend for someone that already has the basics? And get this, Canadian Running Magazine suggests that you get a smartwatch. And the reason they want you to get a smartwatch is for data tracking. Now guys, I don't know. Is there an experienced runner out there that doesn't run with a sports watch? I'm sure there are plenty. Are there any actually watching this video at the moment? I'd love to hear from you if you are one of them. However, dare I say that the vast majority of runners out there already track their runs using a GPS watch. The next suggestion that these experienced runners that are looking to get away from the basics says that you should probably get a couple of pairs of shoes so you can rotate them so you don't actually wear your shoes down as quickly. And then finally, the article suggests getting a couple of specific shoes for different types of runs. So for example, you could go with the Cloudboom Echo 3 for some race day vibes, or you could go with the Adidas Prime X2 Strung if you were looking for a ridiculously expensive shoe that weighs a ton but actually feels surprisingly good on your feet. So I think we're gonna call that a day. Let me move this back around. Definitely, yeah, we're gonna call that a day. Look, I've already asked for that emoji. It was the thumbs up emoji. So really, you only actually had to watch half of this video in order to get that emoji. But yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for staying all the way to the end of this video. I hope you all had a really good week. Don't forget to let me know about your thoughts. Are you experienced? Are you not experienced? Did any of those things actually help you? Or are you already doing all of them? I'd love to know. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.